Back in episode 219, I showed you how to use ActiveModel to create a model that is not backed by the database, but still has some features you know from ActiveRecord, such as validations. Now, ActiveModel is great, but it's not very convenient to use directly like this. You can see it takes quite a bit of code just to make a simple model that has some validation support. There is a gem that can help out with this called ActiveAttr by Chris Grego. It's described as what ActiveModel left out, and is true. It makes it much more convenient to create a tableless model that behaves similar to ActiveRecord. Let me show you how it works here. Here's the application we'll be working with. It's a Contact Us form, and what I want to happen when I fill out the form and submit it is to send out an email and not save the message to the database. I don't want to use ActiveRecord at all here. I just want some of its features, such as validations, so if I fill out an invalid message, it shows some errors to the user. Now, I've already created the controller and view for this, but it works very similar to what would be generated through Rails scaffolding. But let me walk you through it here quickly. I have this messages controller with a new and create action, and when the new action gets triggered, it's just going to make a new message model instance, and then render out the template, which is right here. This just displays that Contact Us form. Take note I'm using form4 to display the form and passing in the message model to it, and then displaying error messages just like I would with a scaffold generator. So from the view template, this perspective, this looks just like an ActiveRecord model. And then when the form gets submitted, it triggers the create action in this controller, which makes a new model instance again and passes the form parameters to it, then checks if the message is valid, and if it is, it's going to send the message. Otherwise, it's going to re-render that form template. So what we need is this message model to behave just like ActiveRecord, except we're just validating it instead of actually saving it to the database. Now currently, this message model is using ActiveModel to handle all this behavior and get it all working, like I showed in episode 219. But I don't want to use this here. Instead, I want to use ActiveAttr gem. To do this, I'll need to add the gem to my gem file, so I'll just put it at the bottom here. It's called ActiveAttr, and then run the bundle command to install it. And then I can add this to my model. Take note that this model doesn't inherit from anything, it's just a simple Ruby class, but I can call include ActiveAttr and then model. And this will add some functionality that builds on ActiveModel to make this class behave like an ActiveRecord model. I can define attributes for this model by calling attribute and then the name of the attribute, such as name, and I have email and content for the content of the message. And you can also just add validations to this just like you would in ActiveRecord. Here I just pasted in the same validations I defined earlier, and that's all I have to do. This is now a fully functioning model that behaves similar to ActiveRecord. So now with ActiveAttr in place, if I try visiting my application again and submitting the form, I still get my validation errors just like I expect, and the model is quite a bit simpler. Another feature that ActiveAttr provides is mass assignment protection. So let's say, for example, that I have another attribute called priority, and I don't want this settable through mass assignment through form values. So I can say attr accessible, just like I would in ActiveRecord, and just providing the attributes that I want settable through the form, so that way this attribute is protected. And you can see that behavior in the console here. If I try to create a new message and pass the priority to it, that will not work. You can see it's not set because it's protected. However, I can set it directly, and that will have the value. Now, ActiveAttr also allows you to call an attribute with the question mark method to force the attribute's value to a Boolean, just like ActiveRecord does. Now, in future versions of ActiveAttr, you'll be able to pass in additional options to this attribute call, such as specifying the type of the value, and we can say something like an integer. That way, any value that's set to this attribute will be typecasted to that. And you can also set a default option as well, so that way when a new instance is created, it will automatically have this value for that attribute. Now, these options aren't yet available in the current release, so I'm just going to leave them commented out, but they may be available once you watch this episode. Well, that's all I have for this episode on ActiveAttr. It's a great way to make a tableless model. Now, I encourage you to check out the documentation for further details. What I've shown you here is how to include the ActiveAttr model module, which includes everything, but you can see that there are separate modules for the different behavior if you want to only include a specific behavior in your model. In the Pro episode this week, I will show you how you can use Minitest in a Rails application. There I will cover testing models and helpers and full-on integration testing with Capybara. To watch that episode and all other Pro and Revised episodes, just head on over to railscast.com/pro and then sign up there for just $9 per month.